If you want to win your fantasy league, you need to know the exact time that you need to trade away some guys on your team. Now, maybe these players aren't bad by any means, but they're just at their peak value right now, and you can get a greater player in return. So today we are breaking down 7 players right now in fantasy football that you could trade away to try and get a better player on your team and improve your entire roster. And let's start with the player who probably stands out the most for me after this past week as a trade away candidate. And this would be David Montgomery of the Lions, because look, don't get me wrong. This was a player who this past week in week 5 in his homecoming game, he goes back home to Cincinnati and he has a massive performance to the tune of Montgomery going out there and having a team high 18 carries for 65 yards and a touchdown. He also threw a touchdown, right? A trick play, a 3-yard touchdown pass in this game. You scroll down, he also catches a pass as well. So you're getting 20 total opportunities in this game. You're getting over 70 total yards and multiple scores. From a fantasy box score, he was a top 12 running back on the week and he looked fantastic. And then you look under the hood in terms of some of the advanced metrics, and compared to Jahmyr Gibbs, he's playing more snaps. He's seeing more rush attempts than Jahmyr Gibbs in this game. Jahmyr Gibbs runs more routes, but that's to be expected at this point. So you start to see that, okay, although it was a nice matchup against the Bengals, who are allowing top 10 rushing production per game, David Montgomery came through with another multi-touchdown game, his second in the past 3 weeks. However, it is a little bit skewed, and it's also giving you the perfect sell window right now, because once you start to look deeper into this, it's like a one-off thing for Montgomery in some ways. Like we mentioned, this was his homecoming game, right? He has his second best performance of the year, a top 10 running back on the week. And in this homecoming game, I mean, he's in the game late. They're blowing the doors off of the Bengals. The Bengals made a late comeback later on in the game. Jamar Chase, a couple of touchdowns. The Lions defensive backs were getting banged up. But they put David Montgomery in there at the goal line to throw a trick touchdown pass. They put David Montgomery in there late in the game to have a rushing touchdown, right? A little of this is kind of manufactured because everybody loves David Montgomery and they knew that this was his hometown game. But other than that, when you start to look at his usage this year, if we scroll over on the player profile or game logs here, just 37% of the snaps, 39, 37, 32. He's not even playing 40% of the snaps in any game. Then in his homecoming game, he plays over 50% of the snaps. I think we know why, right? So a lot of this is skewed at this point. A season high in overall touches, a season high in snaps. I don't think it's going to keep up. I think we're going to go back to this 30 to 39 to 40% of the snaps roll. And honestly, last year, this wasn't the case. Jahmyr Gibbs is taking a step forward this year in snap share and overall involvement in the offense. But it doesn't look like that when you see that David Montgomery has 2 massive performances over the past 3 weeks. He has 2 top 10 performances, and Jahmyr Gibbs doesn't have those same exact performances, especially multiple weeks ago when David Montgomery came out here in a primetime game, had that the longest rushing play of his career, 164 total yards, multiple scores, and had 29 fantasy points, right? So when this is your box scores the last 4 weeks, even a 13-point performance isn't terrible. People might look at David Montgomery and say, oh, he's going to be a league winner for me, or oh, he's somebody I could rely on. I don't think that's the case. Sure, this Lions offense is good. He's going to get some touchdowns here and there, but he's just not seeing the volume or efficiency. Even this past week, he was averaging just 3 yards per carry. And to sort of break down how his role is actually reducing compared to last year, check this out. In 2024, David Montgomery was averaging 42% of the snaps and nearly 50% of the opportunities. But this year, he's only playing 36% of the snaps and only seeing 37% of the opportunities. So this is a guy who's now seeing 15% fewer opportunities through 5 weeks of the season. That is a concern. That's not going to lead to probably another top 20 finish like we've seen in past seasons. And the best part about this is he just had a big week. So look at some of the players that this has been happening as of right now. I'm recording this video on October 8th. It's going to come out the next morning, tomorrow morning. These trades happened today in the fantasy trade database calculator. Rome Odunze for David Montgomery. Give me Rome Odunze. Xavier Worthy. Give me Xavier Worthy. Jalen Waddle. Give me Jalen Waddle. Amarian Hampton's injured, so maybe that one was just related to how this person's roster was, right? Devontae Adams, I want Devontae Adams. Jaylen Warren is even a coin flip at this point because he's looked like a workhorse when healthy this year. Even Stefon Diggs, although I'm not really trying to acquire Stefon Diggs right now, compared to David Montgomery, I would say Diggs probably has similar to maybe even more upside. Devon Achane, there are so many deals right now that you could go take David Montgomery, put him on the block, and probably get a top 20 player rest of season at their position back, which David Montgomery, in my opinion, is. Okay, let's move to the next situation now. Now, you're going to see the photo if you're watching on the YouTube video. It's a photo of Jamar Chase here, and we have to break this one down, right? Obviously, Jamar Chase is great. For many leagues, he was the #1 overall pick in fantasy football, and then the Joe Burrow injury just kind of catapulted that the last couple of weeks, or I should say the opposite. It's been a catastrophe for the Bengals offense these last couple of weeks, but in garbage time against a banged-up line secondary, I mean, they had Terry and Arnold got hurt in that game. You can see right here, 6 catches, 110 yards, 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter, basically alone for Jamar Chase as they were playing from behind. He gets you there. So Jamar Chase has the big game. Even T. Higgins found the end zone. Jake Browning has not been good. We know this, right? He was able to get this team there last week in garbage time. He was able to get Ja'Marr Chase there in the game where Joe Burrow got hurt, but for the most part, he has not been good. You can see from Ja'Marr Chase's box scores here before this game where he had 29 points, the wide receiver 2 on the week, just 7.3, wide receiver 53, 8.9, wide receiver 41. These were not good games. I think we all can kind of tell that at this point. He wasn't having any 50-yard games or 100-yard games, or he had 50 exactly, 23, 26, and 3 out of his first 5 games, even one of those with Joe Burrow. So none of that is great. And it makes sense because your quarterback was Jake Browning. Jake Browning, who to that point in the season, he's been benched now, 189 passing yards per game, 8 interceptions compared to 6 touchdowns, completing less than 60% of his true completion percentage. So they kind of saw enough. They never went out there and inquired about guys like Jameis Winston or Russell Wilson, apparently, but they did go out. And as you probably know by now, the Bengals went out there and sent a 5th-round pick to the Browns for Joe Flacco and a 6th-round pick. Now, I have a lot to say about this deal. First off, if you know anything about football, you know that division rivals, the Bengals and the Browns, rarely trade players to each other, especially starting players. And Joe Flacco, by all accounts, looks like the new starting quarterback for the Bengals until Joe Burrow returns. So if the Browns are going to go out of their way to trade to the Bengals, their quarterback, and again, a lot of this matters for seeding for this year, for your scheduling next year, where you finish in the division, just the fact that you're division rivals and then have to play each other again this season. If the Browns are confident enough to go give a new starting quarterback to their division rival, the Bengals, I think they know that Joe Flacco is absolutely cooked and he's probably not going to be helping the Bengals offense and the Bengals win any games. And based on all accounts, Joe Flacco is cooked. You can see Joe Flacco quarterback rating under pressure according to PFF. Last year, he was 41st out of 43 quarterbacks. This year, he's 36th out of 38 quarterbacks. In terms of EPA, quarterback expected points added, their overall efficiency this year, dead last in the NFL, Jake Browning. Second to last in the NFL has been Joe Flacco. So Joe Flacco, this stat really is a big concern. The under pressure stats, according to JJ Zachariason from PFF right here, because the Bengals offensive line is atrocious. I mean, that's why Joe Burrow has been getting hurt in previous years. He's been getting hurt this year. That's why Chase Brown has been terrible, because he has nowhere to run, because that offensive line is really bad. Now, out of all the teams that they have to face, coming out of the bye, a healthy Packers team against the Bengals, who Joe Flacco has already played, but Joe Flacco was terrible in that game. Now even has an even worse, probably, offensive line, and definitely a worse defense in terms of keeping the game close like the Browns were against the Packers. So there's a world where the Packers are just teeing off and having like a season high in pressures for any team this year against Joe Flacco. Now, again, that's just a 1 week thing. When you look at the rest of the games here, Steelers do have a pass rush, right? So they face them twice in the next couple of weeks. Bears and the Jets. We'll see what happens with the Jets defense as weeks go on here. So they're going to be facing some good defensive lines. I'm very concerned for Joe Flacco. I do admit it is an upgrade over Jake Browning because Flacco can actually throw downfield into tighter windows. But at the end of the day, the upgrade is definitely going to be overstated because how bad this offense has been. I do think Joe Flacco rest of season does make Ja'Marr Chase now a top 10 wide receiver rest of season, but I am hesitant to say that he's a top 5 wide receiver rest of season because his quarterback is not Joe Burrow. It is Joe Flacco. So I'm not dying to trade Ja'Marr Chase, but look at the deals that have been happening since the Joe Flacco trade. All of these deals have happened after the Joe Flacco trade. Justin Jefferson, give me Jefferson. Devon Achane, give me Achane. Jonathan Taylor is an obvious, give me Jonathan Taylor. CeeDee Lamb, who could return in 1 to 2 weeks. Honestly, I'm taking CeeDee Lamb there. Ashton Genty is a coin flip. I'll take Josh Jacobs, right? These are all deals that have been happening since then. You got one big Ja'Marr Chase week this past week. He's still going to have terrible quarterback play for probably the next 10 or so weeks, which is basically the rest of the fantasy season. I personally, if I can get a good deal, I'm looking to sell Ja'Marr Chase for either one of these guys, 1 for 1, or maybe multiple pieces, like a Javonte Williams plus another high-end wide receiver. Javonte Williams plus like Rome Odunze, that's a slam dunk, yes, those types of deals. Now, before we get into the next player, 2 seconds of your time to hit the subscribe button. We are less than 4,000 subscribers away from my goal of 200,000 for this year. It's a big goal of mine, so I appreciate it. If you find these videos helpful at all, be sure to hit the subscribe button. Okay, next up, one of my favorite things to do is what we're seeing right here. Michael Carter is the next player that I want to talk about because Michael Carter is somebody who, there was a lot of questions, who's going to be the Cardinals starting running back in week 5 with James Conner done for the year and Trey Benson now on IR, going to miss 4 to 6 weeks. Is it Amari DiMercado? Is it Michael Carter? Will Zonovan Bam Knight be involved? Well, we got a pretty definitive answer, at least for this one game in week 5. 18 carries go to Michael Carter for 51 yards. He finds the end zone, although he was very inefficient, 2.8 yards per carry. DiMercado sees just 3 carries, broke off a big play, had that fumble that you've probably seen by now at the goal line, and then Bam Knight had just 4 carries, including a goal line touchdown. Michael Carter, also known at UNC with the Jets as sort of like this scat back, adds 5 receptions as well. So he sees 23 touches in this game. He totals over 70 yards. He has a touchdown. So Michael Carter's coming out of this week looking like, when the bye weeks are here these next couple of weeks and really the rest of the season till week 11, week 14, there's bye weeks as well. But right now, Michael Carter is looking like a guy who could be a top 20 running back these next 4 to 6 weeks or so until Trey Benson is back. He played 59% of the snaps in week 5. He saw a commanding 67% of the rush attempts. He even led the backfield in routes run with 46% of the team's routes. He was a true 3-down back. But here's the thing I love most about this. When you start to see these backfields that literally just 1 week ago were up in the air, who's going to be involved? Trey Benson was a starter. Oh, he's hurt. Michael Carter has to come from the practice practice squad? What's Amari DiMercato? What's Bam Knight, right? Like when it's just been 1 week, a lot of chaos can still happen, especially when the guy seeing the most usage in the backfield and Michael Carter wasn't efficient. The dude averaged 2.8 yards per carry. Sure, they gave him a lot of touches, but it could very easily this week, although Amari DiMercato's probably in the doghouse, it could very easily be, oh, Zonovan Knight, you only had 4 carries last week. Let's give you 7 or 8 this week, and now Michael Carter's only seeing 10 or 11 carries, and if he's going to continue to be inefficient, which he's mostly been for the most part of his career as a runner, and only get 3 yards per carry, it's a guy who's not going to get these big performances like he had this past week. That's my opinion, at least. So while his value is literally sky high, 23 touches, a touchdown, 70 plus yards, why not try and deal him? Just a reminder, so far this season, through the games that he's played now, which is about 1 or so games, right? I don't believe, what is he? Yeah, he's had 2 games active. He was active in the game before that as well, where he had a couple of usage and touches, just 2.7 yards per carry, unlimited touches, of course, obviously not great. Look at the deals that are happening right now. Brian Thomas for Michael Carter happened today. Insane. I'd rather have Brian Thomas. I'd rather have Jakobi Meyers. Let's keep scrolling here. I'd rather have Travis Kelce coming off of his best fantasy point expectation day on Monday Night Football. Rashid Shaheed is pretty close to Michael Carter rest of season. Carter, you're getting 3 to 5 more weeks at best until Trey Benson comes back. Rashid Shaheed has been producing like a top 20 fantasy receiver dating back to last year when you take out his injuries. So there's a lot of guys I'd rather have, and you can see them in my rest of season top 150 rankings in the fantasy blueprint at jointheblueprint.com. Just a ton of guys I'd rather have over Michael Carter rest of season. Now, if you want to see my #1 trade target at every single position that you should be trying to acquire to improve your team, it's completely free. You could check it out with the link in the description below or by heading to topfantasytrades.com. That is topfantasytrades.com. You just type that in or click the link and it'll take you to this page right here where you can unlock the #1 trade target at each position. You just type in your email, and once your email is put into there, all you have to do then is wait. You wait a couple of minutes. If you don't see it, check your spam and promotional folders, and I will email you directly those #1 trade targets for this week heading into week 6, and every single week of the year I'll send it to you weekly so you know exactly who you should be targeting in trades to improve your team. Okay, now the next guy on here is a very similar situation as Ja'Marr Chase. I don't want anybody to go all crazy, but the photo on the screen is Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, Bill Krosky-Merritt, the 7th round rookie running back for the Washington Commanders, who has been the biggest hype piece, the most hyped up player since like the end of July to August has been Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, and for the most part, up until week 5, he's been a letdown. He's been in split backfields with backup quarterbacks. He hasn't looked all that great, but this past week, he put all of that to rest. 14 carries, 111 yards, averages 8 yards per carry, 2 touchdowns in this game. He wasn't done there. For a guy who's not known to catch passes, 2 catches for 38 yards, had a long catch and run of 28 yards in this game. So what does he do? He has 150 yards in multiple scores on this game. He has 16 total touches. He leads the Commanders' backfield, obviously in production, but also in carries and usage and volume, which was not something we saw in previous weeks. Now, the one downside you can point to if you're somebody who's still a detractor from Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, I am not that. I just want to call out the fact that he has a lot of value right now, and you can cash it in for more on that in a second. Only 50% of the snaps still, right? So this is a backfield that still has Jeremy McNichols involved for 26% of the snaps, and they obviously trust him in passing down situations. He led the team in routes run this past week. Chris Rodriguez is still getting some early down usage, although I expect him to be factored out a little bit. So I will say, like, Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt just had the game of his life this past week. Definitely the best of his career. Probably will go down as one of the best of his career. 150 yards and multiple touchdowns doesn't happen often in the NFL. So I wouldn't be shocked if we just start to see Chris Rodriguez get completely phased out, but I do think Jeremy McNichols will remain involved. He's just a better passing down back in this backfield. And then we still do have Jaden Daniels, who is somebody who's going to take away carries once his knee gets better. Now, that might be another 2 to 3 weeks once he's able to be fully mobile back there, maybe even longer, which works in the favor of Bill. But here's all that I'll say. Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt is still in a backfield where other guys are going to be involved, still in a backfield that, sure, he looks like the best running back there, but they're not giving him 20 opportunities per game right now. And at the end of the day, he's not like a top 10 running back rest of season, nowhere near. This was a nice usage, his best usage of the season, as you can see in his player profile or game logs here, 48% of the snaps. But we've seen his snaps rise in other weeks, right? I mean, as recent as week 1, he played 36% of the snaps, then they dropped to 22%, and then he bottomed out at 40% of the snaps. This performance, I do think, earns him more snaps, but I wouldn't be shocked if he goes back to next week seeing 14 touches, and these other running backs are still involved for like 10 of their own combined, and that's going to hold down the upside of Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt when he's not breaking off these touchdown runs. In terms of the upcoming schedule for him, I mean, it's going to look nice these next 2 weeks. The Cowboys is a dream matchup, the Bears is a dream matchup, but then things get a little bit more difficult against the Chiefs and the Seahawks, so maybe you want to hold on to him for another week or 2 through the bye weeks and then sell him. But look at some of the trades. This is why it's very important, even though you love the recency bias. He just did so much for me recently. Look at the 2 weeks prior to that for Ja'Marr Chase. Not great. Quarterback quarterback situation hasn't changed. Look at the weeks, 2 weeks prior to this for Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt. Not the greatest. Offensive line, offensive environment has changed a little bit with Jaden Daniels back, but he's still banged up. These are the trades that you can make do right now. Rashee Rice, I'm doing this deal if I have a winning record right now. If I'm 2-3, I'm considering doing this deal right now for Rashee Rice. Brock Bowers, he's banged up right now. Who knows? He might not be back till after the bye. Tetairoa McMillan, I want over Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, which sounds crazy, but the usage is there for McMillan. I like the upside. That one's a little bit closer than probably people expect, though. Jalen Hurts, if you're quarterback heavy, I'd rather have him. So there are deals out here. George Pickens, I'd much rather have at this point. Every single player that we just showed you, like Cam Scatterbo deals and Chuba Hubbard, I don't want those. I want Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt. But there are some scenarios over the past 10 to 24 hours where you can get a big upgrade. Now, the same could be true for Calvin Ridley, who he's probably not going to have the biggest trade market, but maybe after his best game of the season, he has something going his way a little bit in the trade market. 5 catches for 131 yards on a team high 10 targets. It was easily his best day of the season. When you look at efficiency, total receiving efficiency out of every single wide receiver in week 5, number 1 was Emeka Egbuka. Number 2 is actually Calvin Ridley. Number 3, JSN. I mean, JSN and Emeka Egbuka we know is like the 2 biggest breakout wide receivers right now this year. Calvin Ridley was up there. The first 4 weeks of the season, he was terrible. He was dealing with injuries in week 4. He was missing practices heading into week 5 before getting a limited participant in Friday, and then he plays. I mean, he even was limited in week 5. Look at this right here. He only runs 81% of the routes. He only played 65% of the snaps, so he didn't even have his full-time role, but he still went out there and had a team-high 28% target share, still went out there and looked like the best wide receiver on this team for 10 targets, only catching 5 of them. I mean, still to this point, the Titans' offensive line is not great. Cam Ward has been looking good. I would say on film, like he's been making some crazy throws if he can get some protection around him. And all of those things will help Calvin Ridley. But again, just like some of these other players we're talking about, this is a sell high window because if you look at the recency bias of this past week, it was the best case scenario for Calvin Ridley, 131 yards. He still only finished as the wide receiver 14. That's a good finish. It helped you maybe win your matchup, right? But still, at best case scenario, when this offense is actually clicking a little bit and they're winning a game and they're coming from behind and he's throwing for a ton of yards, Cam Ward, relative to what he was doing, still just a wide receiver 14. The weeks before that, wide receiver 56, 57, 82, 68. This could be the changing of the guard. We saw it for Steph Diggs a couple of weeks ago as he got healthier as an older wide receiver. Maybe it's happening right now for Calvin Ridley. They're factoring him into this offense a little bit more. New offensive coordinator, new quarterback. Maybe it's starting to merge now that we're a month into the season away from some of his more difficult matchups. I completely agree that all those things could be true. Like his competition is still terrible in terms of Tyler Lockett, in terms of Van Jefferson, in terms of Alec Imanor, who everybody has fallen in love with because he's a 4th-round rookie, and the dynasty community and the offseason best ball community loves hyping up rookies. But at the end of the day, he's a 4th-round rookie who, for the most part, is just a jump ball average receiver on the outside. He has a couple of touchdowns this year, sure, but so did Nick Westbrook, had a bunch of touchdowns last year, right? At the end of the day, Calvin Ridley maybe leans towards a hold unless you can get some good value. Like somebody is so frustrated with A.J. Brown over the past day. They traded Calvin Ridley for A.J. Brown. Obviously, I want A.J. Brown there, but some of these other trades aren't good. Like Woody Marks at this point, probably a hold for Calvin Ridley. Kendre Miller, probably a hold for Calvin Ridley. Travis Etienne, I'll take Etienne off of his bad game. He still looked good and commanded all the usage in that backfield. At this point, Mike Evans, he's probably going to be back in another week or so. He didn't get put on IR. I would take Mike Evans over Calvin Ridley. So I lean towards hold with Calvin Ridley, but you might as well test the market a little bit to see what you can get off of his big 135-yard game. Now, before we get into this next running back that you might have recently picked up off the waiver wire, and he maybe helped you, he probably helped you in last week, but now I think he's a sell. I don't know if you know this, but I've teamed up with DraftKings Pick 6, the official daily fantasy sports partner of the NFL, and they're offering you a chance to win some real money. All right, here's what I'm talking about. Just pick more or less on 2 or more player stats, whether it's your favorite team, whether it's a guy that you like that week based on his matchup, and that allows you to unlock the upside to potentially win some real money. It's as simple as that. There's no convoluted rules. There's no gimmicks. You just pick more or less on some players and then you watch those players perform. And now here's the best part, a little bit of a bonus for you. New DraftKings Pick 6 customers get $50 in bonus picks with just a $5 entry on your first pick set. This is your opportunity to put your football knowledge to the test. Just download the DraftKings Pick 6 app now and use code SAL. In partnership with DraftKings Pick 6, the crown is yours. Now that running back that I was talking about, who I would assume if you started him, and not a lot of people did start him this past week, but I assume if you started him with Chuba Hubbard being out, and he is week to week with a calf injury, so I would assume Chuba Hubbard's going to miss week 6, maybe even week 7. We'll have to track the reports there. But with him out, a career game for Rico Dotto. One of the best games we've seen for a running back over the past 5 years. 206 yards and a touchdown. He's not done yet there. He's going to add 3 catches for 28 yards, another 6 or so fantasy points, the equivalent of a touchdown in PPR formats. Yes, Rico Dotto went absolutely off for nearly 250 yards and a touchdown on 25 or so touches this past week, and he looked great doing it. If you look at this tweet right here, the the most rushing yards in a game this season, I mean, you have some big names on here. Bijan Robinson on here, Jonathan Taylor on here. Derrick Henry on opening night against the Bills looked like he was a prime Derrick Henry, might be the best rushing performance of the season until little old Rico Dowdle comes through, 206 yards. And don't get me wrong, Rico Dowdle was great last year. He had like one of the quietest 13 to 1,400 total yard seasons. Yes, he had that many yards with the Cowboys, and they let him walk last year, and he signed only like a $3 to $5 million deal with the Panthers to be their backup this year, and he's already producing. He was a true workhorse with Chuba Hubbard out, 68% of the snaps, 79% of the rush attempts, even led the backfield easily with 51% of the routes. Even when Chuba Hubbard was healthy, Rico Dowdle was seeing the carries inside the 10-yard line, was seeing a lot of passing down and 2-minute offense work. Like, they wanted to get Dowdle involved. They liked him a lot, and Hubbard was largely inefficient. But at the end of the day, Chuba Hubbard was not placed on IR, and even though he might miss another 1 to 2 weeks, I assume he's going to be back at some point, and they paid this guy, right? Let's not forget, last year they extended this guy. I believe it was something significant as well, like a 3 to 4 year extension, maybe $40+ million for Chuba Hubbard. Like, they're not just going to bench him, right? Maybe it's a little bit more of a split backfield, but it's not going to be the backfield where Rico Dowdle is going to see 23 carries with a healthy Chuba Hubbard back there. It probably at best for Rico Dowdle will start to become nearly a 50-50 backfield where they're each seeing 10 to 12 touches each. But right now, when Rico Dowdle's 200-yard game is fresh on everybody's mind, why not try and flip him? He's literally never going to be as highly valuable as he is right now, and maybe even in 2 weeks, he's going to go back to being a bench or a waiver player. I mean, look at some of the overreaction deals happening right now. People are trading away Chris Olave for Dowdle. Give me Chris Olave. Ladd McConkey for Dowdle. Give me Ladd McConkey. I mean, Saquon Barkley's obviously just a joke. I don't know if this was a mistake or somebody did this in their sleep or took their friend's phone, but that happened. Apparently that happened, that deal. Breece Hall, I'd rather have Breece Hall, right? There's a lot of deals right now. When you see a player go out there off the waivers and the starting running back is injured for a few more weeks, people overreact, especially when it's a 200-yard game. This is still a bad offense that's going to play from behind, and the starting running back is coming back soon. Sell high on Rico Dowdle if you can. And also consider selling high on Dalton Kincaid. Now, like some of the other players in this video, I'm not as like gung-ho about selling high on a tight end because let's be honest here, if your name is like not Tyler Warren or Trey McBride or Jake Ferguson, you haven't been all that consistent this season in fantasy. So the fact that we're getting some consistency out of a tight end in Dalton Kincaid, who's basically coming off of a career game for 6 catches, 108 yards in this game this past weekend in prime time against the Patriots. The only thing really on this Buffalo offense, James Cook wasn't getting it done. None of the other receivers were really doing much. The only thing working was Josh Allen to Dalton Kincaid, which has basically been the case now for a few weeks. But I will say that he's easily overproducing. Like, he's still in a good offense. He has a great quarterback, so those things are going to happen. You're going to find your way into some touchdowns, but he's still just averaging 4.8 targets per game. He still ranks 17th amongst tight ends in his overall target share. Like, the opportunities just aren't there all that much. If we scroll over to here, let's just look at this on Player Profiler. He already has 3 touchdowns this year, which is a career high. So that's why he's the tight end 3 in fantasy points per game. But for the most part, like, sure, he's getting the touchdowns. He has 3 in the past 2 games. That's probably not going to keep up. For the most part, though, he's like every other tight end on your waiver wire. Oh, he's getting 4 or 5 targets. Oh, he's getting you most weeks 30 to 50 receiving yards as he find the end zone. This past week, he just so happened to have literally a career game of 108 receiving yards. He had a 23-yard reception, multiple explosive plays in this game. He did look good. So maybe this is a trend where Dalton Kincaid, the former first-round pick, is finally, after years, finally getting involved in the offense as the number 1 option that they were hoping for. Or maybe it's just a little bit of a matchup thing. Maybe it's just a little bit of some touchdown luck once he gets into the red zone on his limited targets. So I would at least test the market for Dalton Kincaid. Travis Hunter, who looked like his usage was trending up, and I think it's only going to get better. I'd rather have Travis Hunter over Dalton Kincaid. Ricky Pearsall, who could return this week, I'd rather have him. Ramondre Stevenson is a little bit close, although Antonio Gibson's injury and their reluctancy to give Travion Henderson more work, I maybe lean Stevenson. I definitely much rather have Matthew Golden coming out of the bye here. So Kincaid is still a solid player. I'd rather have him over his teammate Keon Coleman. I'd rather have him over Dallas Goedert at the same position, right? But there are some deals when you see a tight end 2 out of the last 3 weeks finishes the top tight end at the position, scoring touchdowns, hitting 100 yards, attached to Josh Allen in the Bills offense. You could probably sell high decently on that name. So these are the 7 players right now you can try and trade away and sell high on, assuming you get a good offer back in fantasy football. But if you want to see the players that you should trade them for, well, I made a video right here. 10 players that you should be trying to trade for right now. Send the guys in this video for the guys in this video right here that you'll watch next, and you'll have a better team.